So, this week's review is on Dark Souls Remastered. If my constant cocksucking of the Dark Souls series and all my other reviews hasn't already given it away, it's a game I really enjoy. Though admittedly the reason I enjoy Dark Souls is not because I'm a hateful masochist, although I am telling a bit of a lie there. I am certainly a hateful bastard, though I am not a masochist. Let's give that a 0.5 on the truthful scale. One of my reasons for enjoying Dark Souls is it's a game that actually demands skill of its players. I'm sure at least some of you remember skill. It was that thing that video games used to require before the AAA industry fucking found its hatred for your higher thought processes. Dark Souls is a game that thrives on the old chestnut of easy to learn but hard to master. The tutorial in the Undead Asylum does an excellent job of getting you ready for all the basic controls and abilities you're going to need in order to survive your adventures throughout Lordran. However, while it is very easy to pick up Dark Souls and just start playing, the fact of the matter is, unless you put a lot of time into it, you're certainly never going to be able to actually beat the fucking game. Let me make this clear right here and now. Dark Souls is not here to impress you. You are here to impress Dark Souls. A fact the game makes extremely apparent with its first boss fight. You see, the Undead Asylum lulls you into a bit of a false sense of security. Dark Souls starts you off all nice and easy, giving you a few weak enemies that can still fucking shitmix you if you do something wrong, and builds up your confidence to the point where you feel like you're ready to take on everything else the game has to throw at you. And then it decides to throw an actual boss at you, and the boss will proceed to mulch you into a fine paste and put you back where you started in a fucking matchbox. Which does an excellent job of setting the tone for the rest of the game, and also quickly reminding the player that they are a weak, helpless thing buzzing around the remnants of a once mighty world. It's a really great moment when gameplay and story intersect. It also infuriates me beyond all belief because I died to that motherfucker at least 14 times the first time I played this game back in 2011. And on the note of the tutorial in the Undead Asylum, I also feel like it should have been a little bit longer and probably a little bit more in depth as well. I feel like a gentler barrier to entry like that would have encouraged more players to keep going when they got frustrated with the game, and more importantly would have made those who did finish it early on less insufferable cunts. But at the end of the day, regardless of how insufferable a bunch of cunts some people can be about playing Dark Souls and how you're not a real gamer unless you've beaten it on New Game plus, and by the way, if you are someone who thinks like that, then you're the insufferable cunt I was talking about and you can fuck right the hell off. With that said, Dark Souls has really hit my sweet spot when it comes to easy to learn, hard to master, because it is exactly that, hard to master but very rewarding for doing so. For those of you who don't know what Dark Souls is, let me provide you with a little bit of a cheat sheet. When you die, you go back to the last bonfire, which is your checkpoint, and once you're back at your bonfire, you'll quickly discover that you've lost all of your souls, which are both your currency and ability to buy things, and also your currency and leveling up, which makes them a little bit fucking important now, doesn't it? And in order to regain the souls that you've lost, you need to go back to the same point that you died and pick them up from there. The problem being is that every time you use a bonfire, and thus every time you respawn, since you respawn at a bonfire, all the enemies will also respawn and be ready to make your life a living hell all over again. And if you die again while trying to get back to your souls now that all the enemies have respawned, they'll disappear, making all those kills that you did earlier, and possibly all the grinding you've been doing for the last hour or so, pissing in the wind. And thanks to that extra layer of challenge, now that you have to go run back and grab your souls after you drop them from being fucking murder ganked by a guy you didn't see behind a corner, Dark Souls really makes you feel like you've clawed and scraped for every single advantage you can get your hands on. And you feel like you've gained ground against a legitimately difficult world every time you defeat a boss, or get a shortcut, or even sometimes upgrade your weapon to the next level. Because every time you manage to do one of those things, you've made permanent progress against a world that wants you fucking dead. And great for that world too, because trust me, you'll have obliged that world several hundred fucking times before the end of the game. I'm looking at you, Sen's Fortress, you fucking cheap bastard. But moving away from gameplay for just a second, despite it being easily one of the best parts of Dark Souls, the graphics are also likewise excellent. They really did do a lot of work in this remaster to make everything look pristine. Of course, it doesn't change the fact that the most uninteresting parts of it are still Lost Izalith and the fucking Demon Ruins, but hey, you can't exactly improve on dog shit. Although considering how nice it looks now, I suppose it does mean you can roll it in glitter. Oh fuck you, that was an actual joke. Much like the graphics, the sound design has also undergone a bit of an overhaul. Not that that's terribly apparent immediately, the sound design for Dark Souls was always excellent. In fact, sound design for Dark Souls is so good that I can honestly call it one of the most atmospheric games I've ever played. And sound plays a big part in creating atmosphere. The other part is architecture, but that was really covered in graphics because everything in Dark Souls looks gorgeous, even the stuff that makes me fucking terrified. Music plays a very small role in Dark Souls. Most of the soundtrack is simply ambient sound, the sounds of your footsteps in the armor echoing around an empty citadel, or the breathing of a fat prick underground waiting to bust the floor open from underneath you and smack you for half your fucking health. No, I'm not bitter, why do you ask? But despite all the wonderful strong points that Dark Souls puts forward, I think the strongest one might actually be the story. And while Dark Souls' story isn't exactly easy to piece together, it is possibly one of the best I've ever had the pleasure of enjoying. Most of it's hidden in off-the-beaten-path conversations with NPCs, whose dialogue you have to completely exhaust if you want to know everything, and also hidden in the item descriptions for those who are curious and would like to know a little bit more than just what the NPCs are willing to tell them. But at the end of the day, it is a From Software game, which means your involvement in the plot is pretty much up to you. If you'd like to have a good long think about the state of the world as well as your place in it while you murder all the participants of the history of the world, then go right ahead. However, if you just like to murder giant things until the game tells you to stop, that's totally okay as well. However, now that I've sucked Dark Souls cock so much, perhaps we should talk about the problems of the game, and yes, they do exist even though I love it this much, and I'm not blind to that. To start with, it really would have been nice if someone had fucking told me I can only summon help for boss fights when I'm unhollowed. That would have saved me a lot of fucking time in the long run. And secondly, the Duke's Archives can go fuck itself. Oh, and Lost Izalith and the Demon Ruins are a bit shit, but that's honestly such a small complaint at this point I don't even really know why I'm putting it in here. What I'm trying to say is that even with its faults, Dark Souls is one of the most rewarding and exciting games you'll ever play. But since I'm sure that's too subtle a recommendation for some of you, I'll be a little bit more direct. Play Dark Souls, you prick!